Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Chris Westfall. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting and Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today talking about your book, Easier, 60 Ways to Make Your Work Life work for you. And oh my gosh, do we need that in life and in work? Because we were just talking before the interview that we often make life so difficult. I know I do. So, so now tell me, what even prompted you to write this book? We touched slightly on that, but I'd like you to share that with our audience.
I wrote it because life can be difficult. Thank you for having me today. I want to say that right out of the gate. I'm so thrilled to be here. But I feel like for me in my life, I have a tendency to make things difficult. That's what we were chatting about. Mm-hmm. And I was looking in the direction of what is it, and maybe this is kind of selfish, but I was looking in the direction of what is it that I need in my life? And I stumbled upon this idea of easier. And from that realization that, look, life isn't easy, but even in the middle of difficult circumstances, I realize that I can show up differently. I can show up in a way that makes even tough times easier. And that's not just true for me, right? It's true for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's true for everybody. It's for human beings everywhere. And that's the place where easier really came from. And inside this story, the folks who read it will find their own journey and their own discoveries around how to enhance their relationships. So of course, the subtitle deals with your work life, but it's, I mean, what's work life? It's just life. Am I right? It's just life. So that's what the book's about.
They all coincide together. I mean, if you're having difficulty in your work life, you're most likely having some difficulty in other parts of your life. Cher, what have you figured out that really causes us to want to go towards hard? Do we like hard? What's up with that?
We fall into misunderstandings all the time. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about you and me. I'm talking about all people everywhere. But I'll start with myself. I fall into misunderstandings. And sometimes I look at the world and I look at my circumstances, my situation, my relationships, and I feel like I'm all alone, right? I fall into that trap, the lie that says, if it's got to be, it's up to me. Mm-hmm. Moving the world is all up to me. And that leaves me feeling like Atlas, trying to lift the world all by myself. And I lose sight of the fact that I don't have to go it alone. Yeah. And that's one of the central themes of Easier. It's one of the central themes of my coaching and the work that I do with my clients is to let people know that they're not in this alone. But sometimes it feels like that. I mean, when life is difficult is when we get that tunnel vision, when it feels like we are in a tunnel or we're on an island. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And from that place, life is hard. But the fact of the matter is, it's not all up to you. And anything of any value involves other people. And so being able to reach out to find resources in the midst of difficult times might be the first step towards finding a new perspective and finding a way out. At least that's what's shown up for me and in my work and working with coaches and being coached. I mean, not only am I a coach, but I have coaches that work with me, and being able to see things from another perspective has made just a huge difference. Even when the circumstance hasn't changed, Christina, when I change the way that I look at it, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I think, and it's true, when things get really tough, that's when the tunnel vision glasses come on and you almost only see the difficult, narrow vision of what's here. All the other possible opportunities disappear and it's like, zoom. And from that perspective, really, you kind of get stuck. And what I like about what you're saying is sometimes it's as simple as just reaching out to others and saying, hey, this is where I'm at. And asking for help. And you'd be amazed. I remember in my 20s, I had a desire to work with children with autism. I was just really curious about it. And see, I didn't know where to begin. I'm in my early 20s. I don't have any degree in psychology or anything like that. I'm not a teacher. And I had a friend, though, who is a psychologist, and we were talking, and she said, well, I happen to know an organization that works with children with autism, and I have a friend. Why don't you come to my party tonight, and I'll introduce you? And she did. I went and I met her, and she put me in touch with a wonderful opportunity that became a life enhancing experience for me, working with children with autism in my early 20s. But it was that asking. If I hadn't even put it out there to my friend during lunch one day, it wouldn't have rolled out to what ended up happening later on, working for this wonderful organization.
I love that. You know, it's amazing what happens in life when we show up. And it, you know, what you're talking about right there is that how you showed up actually created your world. I mean, you showed up, you went to the party, you were present, you had a conversation, and it created an entire new set of possibilities. And when life is difficult, we don't see possibilities. We don't see that we can go and we can meet someone, that we have friends that can make introductions for us. And, you know, maybe part of that is due to the pandemic and the isolation that we all felt and things like that. But, you know, as those days become further and further in the rearview mirror, and they become more and more behind us, what we have to look forward to is just remembering that possibilities always exist. When life is tough, we don't see it. But like right now, I mean, while we're casually talking, it's easy to see. I mean, we can talk about anything. I can say anything. I can say Nova Scotia. I can say avocados. I mean, I can say anything, right? The possibilities are endless, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And but when life gets tough, when our relationships are going south, when things at work aren't the way that we'd like them to be, it doesn't look like those possibilities exist. And that's where coaching can be really, really powerful, is to have someone who's willing to listen deeply, to discover where you are, and to share a fresh perspective, which is not to say that a coach shares a blueprint for your life or a prescription for your life, but it's an opportunity to step into new circumstances, or to step back into the old circumstances and show up in a different way. And that different way is the possibility that I'm talking about, the possibility that always exists.
I love possibilities. But what I'm getting here, and it's interesting because during the last 2 years or so, it's been difficult for a lot of folks, and not just because the meeting and greeting has been harder to do, if not impossible in some areas, but also the loss of income for a lot of people. You know, if they had a job and they lost it, or they had a business and lost clients due to, you know, whatever their business was, it could be really easy to get into a tunnel vision arena when the loss of income. Where do I even begin? So let's say someone's listening in today and they're like, okay, I get you, but where do I even begin to get a coach or get someone to listen to me that will not just say, oh yeah, poor you, but get out of this rut? Because like you said, it's really just a reframing that can make all the difference. Where do they begin?
The best way to discover if coaching is for you, and if a particular coach is a good fit for you, is, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's to be coached. It's to go into the conversation and share the challenges that you're facing, and discover based on your own experience, is this person listening to me? Is this person trying to give me, you know, shoot from the hip advice, or are they offering some sort of insight that can share that new perspective? And that new perspective always comes from one place and one place only, and that is from insight that you discover. And the coach's role, at least in my coaching, is the coach's role is to help to point you towards that insight, that new way of looking at things. Because when people find themselves in unexpected circumstances, and I've been there, I've been there, suffering, you know, job loss, financial difficulty. I mean, I could go on and on, but the point is not what have I been through, but the point is that if you are going through something right now, and you're interested in finding this perspective that we're talking about, maybe your income has gone down, or whatever the case may be, you're facing some economic factors, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Make sure that you have that conversation, so that you know that you experience that kind of insight, and certainly that would be the first step, is to see if the person who says that they're a coach can really be of service to you.
Yeah, that is great advice. And many years ago, when I had a difficult spell, and I was just like done with where I was at, and I think that's an important thing we can touch on, is that you really have to be done with where you're at. You know, there's some people who stay in the milieu and of yuckiness and be like, but you know, I'm not ready to leave this yet. There's, you know, sometimes it feels like a comfortable jacket, but when you finally had enough of this very yucky, comfortable jacket and you're ready to toss it aside and look for a new perspective, I was there and working at a miserable employment at the time and feeling like I had no way out. And there was a Barnes and Noble book signing of this coach, and I didn't know she was a coach, but at the time I also was looking for love, and she wrote a book on finding your perfect love. And so I went to it. She happened to be a life coach. And so I listened to her speak about how she'd been in the gutter, and pretty much her story sounded like where I was at that moment before she all got started and transformed her life. And now she had a mid six-figure business, was very happy, and had this six-figure business for over 12 years. I was like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want the life you now have. And so I saw her in the bathroom later after the book signing. I said, I'd like to find out more about how the heck you did that. And she's like, well, here's my card. I do coaching. I'll give you a free discovery call. And I didn't know what coaching was, never heard of it. What the heck is a coach? But we had a discovery call, and by the end of it, I signed up with her, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So if you've never thought about coaching, maybe just venturing out and looking into it could be the first step.
I couldn't agree with you more. And for me, people say, you know, Chris, you are a coach. Why do you have a coach? And the answer is pretty simple. It's because I want to be better. Mm-hmm. Because I want to see things in a new way, and I want to make the discoveries that I'm missing. And I've been in tough spots too. I mean, I remember when I was one missed payment away from giving the keys to my house back to the bank. Mm. And I remember, and this was a while ago. It was during the financial crisis and that sort of thing. And a lot of people were in even worse shape than I was. But I was in a very, very difficult place. Mm. And I fell into the trap of thinking that, you know, change just takes forever. I'm never going to find a way out of this. I'm never, you know, this change is hard, change is difficult, and change doesn't happen. And then, you know, with a phone call, my house sold. I was able to get out of a very, very difficult situation with a phone call. One phone call, and change happened in an instant. And that's the thing that we don't realize about change is that when we see our circumstances as difficult, we lose sight of the fact that change can happen with a phone call, with a text, with an email, with a hand on your shoulder to let you know that you're not alone, with a conversation that takes your challenges and gives them a soft place to land. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the power inside of the coaching conversation, and the power inside of just remembering that change can come to us at any time. And that's not something to be scared of. That's not something to fear. That's something to embrace. And whether that's a conversation about autism, or a phone call from someone who wants to buy your house, or whatever the case may be, those opportunities exist. And I don't know what those opportunities are specifically for you or for the people listening to the sound of my voice, but I do know human nature, and I know the way that the world works. And discovering those opportunities happens one conversation at a time. And when you have someone in your corner, which is what a coach really is, someone who's looking at your success with the same intent as you are, you see things in a new way, and you realize a couple of things. One is that it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't. And you say, well, Chris, my circumstances, there's no way that I can change them. No, but you can change the way that you show up in your circumstances. You can change the way that you react and respond to your circumstances. And a big part of my coaching is to help people to see that this idea that's just the way I am isn't. That we have the opportunity to change ourselves, to be transformed if we choose to step into it, and if we choose to embrace that. But sometimes when circumstances are difficult, you know, when you come to the end of your rope, and you just tie a knot in it and try to hang on. I've been there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes knowing that you're not alone in that journey can really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I had last year hired a coach in the way of fitness coach. And after working with them, it was very instrumental in focusing me on my goal for health and fitness. But I remember a close friend of mine saying, well, you're done with that, right? You did a year, you should get everything you need and be done with it. But I find like, just like we're talking about people, you're a coach, you have a coach. There are psychologists who have psychologists as well. And there are top athletes who still have coaches, even though they know all the proper form and how to do their game. It's having that other perspective to bring you to excellence and continue to bring you to excellence, because you might know it, but having someone in your corner that can always show you a different angle or perspective that you just might be missing at that moment, that's instrumental in bringing you to your next best potential.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
So true. My coach, she's a surfer in Southern California. And I'm from the Midwest, so stories of surfing are quite exotic to me. Although I've been in the ocean many times and that sort of thing, and I love the ocean. I love being at the beach. But she shared with me something that I think is just so vital to remember, and we lose sight of it so many times. I was speaking with her, and I was sharing some of the difficulties in my life, particularly around marketing and branding, and some challenges that I was having. And I was sort of playing a game of not it with my coach. I was like, I see that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. She said, you're playing a game of not it. And I'm like, well, I just need to find what's next. I'm looking for what's next for me. And she said, well, there's one thing that surfers always talk about and that they always remember. And if you consider your time in the ocean, think about this. The saying is this, that the wave always comes to you. And I thought about that for a second, and I, reflected on my time in the ocean, and I said, you know what? She's absolutely right. There's nothing that I can do, no matter how hard I kick, or, I can't make the wave come to me. But when I saw that, I realized that of course, if you're going to take advantage of a wave and not be, overwhelmed by it, maybe you need to be out there on your surfboard. Maybe you need to have your wetsuit on, whatever the case may be. You need to be prepared for that opportunity that you're seeking, is the point that I'm making. But the wave always comes to us. And if that doesn't look true, and sometimes for me, it doesn't look true. I'm like, no, the waves, where are the waves? There are no waves. Zoom out, because there's always opportunity. There's always opportunity all around us, even in the midst of recession, even in the midst of economic difficulty, even when you're working with a bad boss, even when you and your partner aren't getting along. I mean, I could go on and on. But seeing those possibilities, that's the key to making things easier.
Yeah, I totally get you. And there's a guy who does sales for a living, and he always says when he ends a call, he doesn't take it personally. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'm not here to serve you. That's great. But he always ends it with, do you know anyone else I might be able to help or serve? And it's from this attitude that there's always an opportunity for me to give and to serve. And if not here, then it's somewhere. And he has some of the best records I've ever seen with sales. And I think it's coming from that perspective that there is always an opportunity for me to serve. And that's also makes your life easier. Instead of looking for, how do I get it? It's there already. The wave is coming to you. Just be ready to receive it and ready to give.
So true. And ready to give. That is such a vital phrase. The book Easier, it starts off with a wonderful quote by George Eliot that says, what do we live for if not to make life less difficult for one another? And this is, for me, a call to all of us, a reminder that we are here to serve. And when we get lost focusing on ourselves and what we don't have and how we'd like things to be, we're missing our purpose. We're missing an opportunity to see a value that all human beings share. I believe it's that value of service. Now, how important that is to you and how you express it, again, that each of us to his or her own capabilities. But I believe that service is central to who we are as human beings. And I also believe that along with service, I believe that we are here to create something. And that's why we create partnerships, we create families, we create family drama, we create the things that we create, right? And we create inventions and innovations and new ways of doing things and reasons to stick to the old ways of doing things. I mean, we create all of these things. And my point is that when we recognize that we are here in service to create, our perspective can shift, and we can take a look at life, maybe a little more like a scientist, the way that a scientist looks at experiments, for example. Like a scientist runs an experiment, and whether the experiment works or not, both outcomes are positive outcomes. I'll tell you why. Is it? Because they're more informed. They're more informed. They learn, and that idea of looking at life with an almost scientific perspective has really made a difference for me, because through that lens, I've been able to see things that in the past I've characterized as mistakes, as simply doing the best I could with the information that I had at the time.
Yeah.
And it was me testing a hypothesis. It was me trying to do the best that I could. And from this place, there's a freedom that emerges. A freedom to experiment, to try, to say that, whether this goes left or right, I will be better informed because I had the conversation, because I sent the text, because I read that email. What is it that we can do to step towards what's good about our circumstances? And I tell you, I want to make sure people don't think that I'm just, full of sunshine and peppermints here. Like there's always goodness everywhere you look. And the reason I want to say that is because I was in a very, very difficult place when I wrote Easier, because I lost my father. I lost my father to COVID. And the book is dedicated to his memory. And I bring this up simply to say that my life is not easy by any means. And losing someone is never easy. Grief is never easy. But I discovered a way to make that sense of loss easier. And that's what I wanted to share inside this book. Not just a sense of loss, but a sense that we, not just you and I, but human beings everywhere, we're capable of so much more than what we realize. And the message of resilience, the message of opportunities, is not some motivational mumbo jumbo. It's based on my own experience. It's based on my own observation, and it's based on science. The science that says that we're able to adapt. We've all had difficulty. We've all experienced loss. We've all experienced grief on some level, and yet here we are, still standing, and maybe a little bit sadder some days.
Yeah.
But I am still standing and still moving forward, and always looking in the direction of this book, because I tell you, this isn't just the book that I needed to write. This is the book that I need to read. And every day I look at difficult circumstances and I ask, and this question is at the core of the book, but I ask myself this question: what could make this easier? What would this look like if it were easier? And how could I show up? Who do I need to be? What resources do I need to gain or corral or contact in order to make this easier?
Yeah.
And it's so funny that when you look in a direction, you never know what you might find.
I love it. And what I hear you doing there is really asking different questions. And why is this so hard? You're going at it from, who do I need to be? What can change to just transform this, instead of sticking in the hole of why me? And we can get stuck in that kind of tunnel vision back and forth. But I don't want us to leave without everyone getting their very own copy of Easier. How do they do that?
Well, the easiest way to do it would be to check out my website. That's easier-book.com. You can also find the book wherever fine books are sold, which means Amazon online. And of course, the book is available in hard copy, Audible book, and Kindle.
Awesome. And I see you have a website, westfallonline.com. Is that for your coaching services as well, if they want to coach with you?
That's right. People can find out more about me on that website. And if, I don't know if people would be interested, but if you're curious to learn more about what coaching looks like and what it might mean on a personal level, there's a connect button on my website. And if you hit that, you could set up a 30-minute conversation just to talk about coaching and see if there's an experience in there that might be different than the one you're having right now, to amplify or to enhance or to accelerate what it is that's missing from your life, so that you can step into the life that you're interested in. And if I can help you on that journey, I'd be happy to do it. So that's a free, no obligation 30-minute conversation, which is offered right there on my website in the lower right-hand corner.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I just have to thank you again. You've given so much phenomenal insight and thoughts today to our audience. I really appreciate you coming to Savvy Broadcasting today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.